Well, Corey Teunissen, welcome to the pod.
Dude, I'm pumped. I woke up this morning and I was super excited, but also like pretty nervous.
Do you reckon I find like, I always get nervous as well, but it's like when you go in a competition, like those nerves are good, but then when you're in it, it's like everything just flows.
Yeah, and I think like I've been very lucky enough to do some podcasts with like some of my best friends. So like it's just like having a grand old chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you find like the nerves like it's good?
Oh,
Like
for
it's
sure.
good to have the nerves?
Yeah, it's good to sit outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
100%.
And did you find as well, because that's why I've been doing breath work. Pretty much every guest that comes in, I always say, hey, let's lay down, do some breath work. And you'll notice their, like, even just their body language, like they'll soften, like they'll just go, oh, like relax into it.
Yeah, I loved a bit of Wim Hof just then, but it probably like for a lot of people it's a really good way to drop the egos before like getting into the potty. It's nice.
Mm.
Yeah.
You realize everything's not as important as you might seem.
Yeah.
You were,
Just be very present.
you were saying before, because the first time you experienced that was when we're at the, I always think it's Good Humans because of Coop, but it wasn't,
I think it was something along
Humankind maybe?
That was it.
Humankind, yeah.
that was it.
So we went to a Humankind, what would you call it? It was like a speaking event in Sydney.
Yeah, it was like it was just a speaking event and a bunch of people came along and did some TED Talks and provided some really good and helpful information and it was epic, dude. It was unreal.
But the star of it all was Wim. So Wim came, and Jim Jeffries. Jim Jeffries stole the show.
That was epic.
But you were saying just before, that was the first time you really did like a breath work, and that was in a stadium or like what would you say, not a stadium, like a hall of like thousands of people. And what was that like for you? Because that was the first time you said you dropped in.
Yeah, I mean, I've done like a bunch of the Wim Hof method breathing techniques before, just like on my own or with like buddies and stuff. But when we did it in that massive amphitheater with like 1,000 people and actually having Wim there it was like the most euphoric experience I've ever had. It was incredible. Like it was the first time I'd like really felt the benefits of the breathing technique for sure. Yeah, it was unbelievable.
When you really drop into it, hey.
Yeah, and I thought the biggest thing for me was I was like, okay, like Wim's here. I'm gonna devote myself to this as much as I possibly can, and I want to get the most out of it. And I mean, we did more, like, I think we did like 5 or 6 rounds that day
We went
too,
into it.
versus like 3 rounds that all the YouTube videos or like recordings and stuff have. So I think like that might have been a big thing as well, but just the energy in the room was just so infectious.
I love how it takes like the master to show up and just be like, okay, I'll listen now. Like,
I'll dedicate myself to this. Yeah.
YouTube's just not doing it for me. I need him in person.
Nah, I need Wim every day.
But no, it was pretty cool because we went down there. Obviously, our mutual friend Cooper Chapman was chatting. And do you find it kind of funny, because I've never really talked to you about wakeboarding. I've never really talked to Cooper about surfing. I've never really talked to Harry about motocross. I've never really talked like about mountain biking. It's funny how we've all kind of become such good friends, and we're obviously really good at our given sport, but it's never been the thing. Do you find that's almost like we've come together because we're all kind of good at something, but it's not because we're good at something that we've all come together, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I guess personally for me, I've always been really adamant about wakeboarding is what I do. It's not who I am. And I feel like I've spent a lot of years trying to separate myself from what I actually do for a job and for a living. It's like, it's not all of me. I feel like there's more to my personality than just going out on a boat and wakeboarding. And I feel like a lot of us are very, very similar in that aspect. And I feel like that's why we have drawn to each other and have become such good friends over the past few years, is just because, it's pretty cool to say, like, we're all very elite in our own industries, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah, you can come together and appreciate what people do.
Yeah.
But you don't have to, it doesn't have to be the thing.
It's not you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's how, did you find like growing up and obviously getting really good at something, it's hard to separate that identity piece of who you are as an athlete and who you are as a person?
I think, I mean, for me, wakeboarding it was all very natural. Started off as a family affair. My old man was in the water skiing, so when myself and my brother came along, it got passed down to us very quickly. I think I was on the water skiing when I was 3, wakeboarded when I was 5, like full water baby, and then it just progressed into like the people that we were wakeboarding with was like, oh, you should try these grassroots competitions. So we started going to that, and then that led to the state titles, national titles, and then started traveling overseas and all of that.
What's your fondest memory as a kid growing up behind a boat?
As a kid,
Yeah.
dude, I remember. So I grew up at a place. Well, I didn't grow up. We had a holiday house, a weekend house at a place northwest of Goldie here. It's called Somerset Dam, and it's a tiny little village and a big lake that everyone goes out and rides and uses the water. And when I was younger, there was probably like 5 or 6 households in this like really tiny little village that were all like learning to wakeboard at the same time, and I was the youngest of the group, so I was always kind of just looking up to everyone. I just wanted to wakeboard because they were older than me and they were cooler than me, so I was like, I want to do that, right?
Get me off the skis.
Yeah. But dude, I remember the coolest thing about it was like, I remember every weekend, or every Friday afternoon, I'd get picked up from school with the boat on the back. We'd rip straight up to the lake, and whoever would get out on the lake the first Friday afternoon would have bragging rights the whole weekend. And I wouldn't see mum or dad the entire weekend. I'd just be at my buddy's place. I'd like go out on the boat with him, come back, go to the next friend's house, hang out there for a couple hours, eat food over at this guy's house, and like I wouldn't see the parents for an entire weekend until we had to go back home. So like those were just some pretty epic times.
How good's that when you're chasing something, but you're not chasing it for the, like, you were never like, I want to be, or you might have been in the back of your head, but you were like, I don't want to be wakeboard world champion or whatever, these things. You just like, I just want to hang out with my buddies. I want to have fun. I want to enjoy it. And then like how quick you progress with that. And like you said, being around older people that are doing what you want to do, you're just like a sponge and you latch onto them.
Yeah, completely. 100%. Like I mean, the only reason why I wanted to do it was because they were cooler than me. They were older than me.
Just wanted to be cool.
Yeah, dude.
Did you have like, was there a kid or guy back then that you kind of really looked up to that helped you progress?
I mean, definitely that group that I grew up at Somerset Dam with, for sure. They were like a big influence when I was probably like under 10 years old, you could say. And then as I started to progress in wakeboarding, then like I looked up to like a lot of the wakeboarders and stuff. But more recently, like I gained a lot of influence from like other sports and other industries and stuff. Yeah.
So more looking at people outside of wakeboarding, but actually, I guess that's kind of hard when you hit the pinnacle, hey? Because it's like even the people you look up to in your sport suddenly become your friends. Like it's a weird transition when an idol becomes a mate.
Yeah, 100%. And even when I was younger, like probably like 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, like there was definitely a switch between, okay, these guys are my buddies, to I was very, very competitive because I wanted to prove to myself that I could do well and be successful. So like there was definitely a switch between these are my mates and now these are my enemies.
Really? You look at is that just in competition mode?
Yeah. And I'm a very competitive person by nature. So I just found that I just needed to be competitive in all aspects of life to convince myself that I could do this and prove to myself that I could. So I just, for a few years, I was very, very competitive.
Really? How did that come across? Were you still like going out in their boats or anything, or did you kind of shut into your own lane more or less?
Yeah, I'd go ride with them all the time.
Yeah. But you just had that mindset, like, I need to beat you. Like, I want to beat you.
It was like an everyday thing. Like, I need to ride better than you. I need to eat better food than you. I need to get more sleep than you. I need to literally any possible way that I think that I could have beat them in some way, I felt like I needed to.
Was that draining or energizing?
It was definitely, well, looking back on it now, it was draining, but at the time it was just very normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did it affect you when you say it's draining? You just like lack of energy because you're always kind of, because that's one thing I always try and put across to anyone that sees someone at a high level sports and like, oh, it must be nice, or I wish I had your life. I'm like, your brain doesn't shut off. Like, it's like you're working for yourself 24/7, and there's always something more you can do.
Oh, I completely agree. And I guess like that's the beauty of the sport that I do is, and I guess like individual sports in general where you're at a high elite level of competition and your work ethic is a direct influence of how you're going to compete. So that's the thing I love about what I get to do every day is like every time I rock up to an event, if I don't compete to my expected level, then it's a direct influence of what I'm doing at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't hide when you're behind that boat and everyone's got their eyes on you, or you're on a racetrack and everyone's got their eyes on you. You're like,
you can't hide.
Yeah. As much as you want to blame the bike or the wakeboard or the boat or the wake or whatever it may be, the weather, it's like, nah, it's just you.
It's me.
But then if you pull it off though, it's just you as well.
Exactly. And then it's just like a really good reassurance. It's like, all right, I'm doing the right things now. Like,
when did you? Was there a switch in your mind when you kind of obviously said these are my friends and then these are my competitors or enemies or whatever? Was there a point when you went from I want to be a pro wakeboarder to like I am a pro wakeboarder, and how was that mind shift?
I think growing up, I never got into the sport to become successful. We just did it as a family. We loved going on the boat. It was our time of bonding and connection with everyone. And I think that's what wakeboarding is really good at, is because you can't wakeboard on your own. You have to have at least like one friend to drive a boat. And I feel like just being on a boat is something that it's a great escape, and you can be very present and enjoy what you're doing. And I think that's really special about what I do. But I never had the intention to be successful. I actually didn't even really enjoy it growing up. I always just did it just because everyone else was doing it and the family did it, and I was pushed into it a lot as well. So like,
so really, you didn't enjoy it like as a kid?
Not really. I just did it because I was
there. Yeah,
it was there. I was very fortunate and lucky to.
Did you feel pressure from like your family to do it?
Yeah. I mean, there was definitely pressure for sure. Like my old man pushed me a fair bit. And when I was younger, I hated it and I hated him for it. But now I'm so grateful and so lucky that he did. Because I kind of refound my love for the sport later in life. And I feel like that's been a big reason why I've been going overseas for close to 15 years now already. So I'm very grateful that everyone stuck with me. But yeah, I didn't really enjoy it when I was growing up. So never got in it to be successful. But then I think when I was like 13 or 14 years old, I'd spent some time in the States. I first went overseas when I was 13. I spent 6 weeks with a family in the US. Never met them before. My old man flew me over.
That's so heavy for a 13-year-old, bro. You're like, all right, going to America, new family. This is the thing that you're not that interested in, but I really want you to do well. So good luck.
Yeah. It was kind of funny. Dad flew me over, shook hands, said hi, and then Dad pretty much hopped on the next flight. Like, he wasn't even in Orlando for 24 hours. He was just like, yep, hi, how you doing? See you, mate. So I spent 6 weeks with them.
How did you feel about that?
I guess my upbringing was very, very different to what you would say the norm is. But for me, it was normal. So I didn't think anything different. I thought, because obviously,
you only have your perspective, hey?
Exactly. And a lot of my friends I had met through wakeboarding at this time were traveling overseas and moving and spending time over there. So like for me, it was like very normal. But looking back on it, it was so far from that.
This is not normal.
Yeah.
See you, Dad.
Yeah, right. I think they just hated me, so that was like, yeah, they booted me out of the house, and I was pretty young. But so yeah, I spent 6 weeks with a family. When I was 13, I'm still unbelievably good friends with them now. And then I think it was the following year when I was 14, and I spent 3 months in the States when I was 14, and I think I was at that age where I was like, okay, this probably isn't normal, and if I have this opportunity, I'm going to give it the best shot I can. So I think it was like, I mean, there was never like a defining moment where I was like, all right, I'm going to try and make this work, but reflecting back on it now, it was probably around that time where I was like, okay.
Do you think as well the separation from your dad, and I'm not sure if your mum was pushing you or the rest of your family, but do you think the separation from your dad was almost a good thing as well? Because you felt like you were kind of doing it more for you, even though he put you in that situation?
Yeah, I think so. I think it just allowed me to grow into my own person. And I was very lucky that my old man was and still is very heavily invested in the sport, loves the sport, loves everything about it, is very knowledgeable. And my mum's a mum. She has no idea about the sport. She obviously knows that I wakeboard and knows
Go,
that
honey.
I live a pretty
I'm
crazy
proud of
life,
you.
but she has like zero idea of anything industry-wise. So,
because it's such a fine line between pushing your kid into a sport and pushing them out of it.
I was definitely on the verge of being pushed out of it, but I'm a big believer in like you can't become successful without being pushed into the uncomfortable. And I see a lot of young families now. They're like very hesitant to try and push their kids and stuff. I'm like, dude, rip in, like rip in. There's only one way to become successful. Kid has to be pushed. You get those once in a generation talents that, one, they're very talented. Two, they have great work ethic. But three, it comes from internally. It comes from them. But my belief is that a lot of the time, if all these high successful athletes have to be pushed.
I talked with a sports psychologist, and we were talking about this whole idea of parents pushing. It's like best case scenario, if you want to push your kid, get them a wakeboard coach, get them someone that isn't you, like support them, help them. But I think it's just that fine line between when you're playing the role of a parent and you're playing the role of a coach, and that gets very blended together. And I think that makes people get resentful towards their parents, because it's like, are you playing coach now? Or are you playing dad? And I can't separate the two anymore. And because of that, I don't want to do this anymore. Where if you have a coach that, and obviously everyone can't just afford a coach, but if you can afford someone that's going to push you, like, that's coach. He's here to help me get better at this skill. It doesn't really matter if he loves me or not. If you're questioning whether your dad loves you or not because he's trying to push you in a sport, like, that becomes a very tricky situation to navigate, especially for a kid, especially for a young kid.
Yeah, that was definitely me.
Yeah.
That was definitely me. And like, to be brutally honest, I probably still juggle that now. Like, there's times where I'm like, all right, like, just be my fucking dad.
Yeah.
But I know that it all comes from a place of love, and I know that he wouldn't be doing what he is doing if it wasn't from a place of love. So it's more of a mutual respect than anything else.
It's going to be a tricky thing, man, trying to be a parent. Like, I struggle even now sometimes helping like younger kids and balancing that role of being a mentor but also being a friend. And it's like, at the end of the day, I just want to be your buddy, and I enjoy riding bikes with you. I did enjoy riding bikes with you, but then you also want to obviously instill some wisdom. And if they're doing the wrong thing, you kind of want to let them know. But then it comes into that point where I'm like, I'm just a friend of yours, and you don't want to be too harsh, especially you said like on young kids. And but you also know the impact it could have on them if you do help them or do say, hey, this isn't the right thing. Do this, go this direction. And I guess, did you feel that even with I just had Thomas on the podcast recently, and
Tommy.
Tommy, we were talking about how you were obviously a big impact on him and his progression as a rider, and he even said on this podcast that he would want to come in and be like, "I'm wrecked, man. I'm done." And you're like, "No, you got to do your tricks," and you would kind of like force him to go out and finish it. And he said afterwards, like, "I'm so glad he was there to push me and do that because I wouldn't have done it otherwise." But then it's like, then you're playing that mentor and friend role as well. So it's like you've had to learn from obviously your dad and then implement it in a different way as a friend. Obviously, father's different, but it's still, how is that like navigating that as a friend and a mentor?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit it on the head perfectly there. I learnt what I thought was the right way to go around it, and I learnt what I thought was effective, and between playing the two roles, and I learnt what I didn't like, and I was like, well, let's kind of merge these two together. And Tom's one of my best mates, and we're really lucky that we're both in the same industry, and we're both able to live a really, really cool life, and I want to see the best for him. So obviously I want to help him achieve his life's goals and dreams and live the best life if he could. So
did you see a bit of your dad in you when you were pushing him, and you knew where that was coming from?
almost not necessarily, because when I started, I mean, I've only known Tom for the past probably 3-4 years now, and by that time I was very much my own person, and at the end of the day, I'm always going to be my hardest critic on myself. So that kind of morphed into me being the mean person towards myself. So when I met Tom, started hanging out with him, and I guess the biggest thing for Tom is I see how much potential he has and the trajectory his life could go on if he fully devotes himself to the sport. And I don't want to see him miss out on that opportunity. So I want to see him do the best he possibly can.
But so you saying that, I'm sure if I asked your dad, he would say the exact same thing.
Probably.
Is that?
Yeah,
that's the thing.
and he probably would. But the way I direct my work ethic towards Tom is all the lessons that I've learned throughout my career. So then I get to influence Tom the best possible way.
Yeah.
I've had negative influence and I've had positive influences, and I've learned what works for me and what doesn't. And I've also been lucky to have a lot of people, very, very elite people, help me along the way as well. So I've gained a lot of outside knowledge that I've then brought into my own personal craft. So learning all these lessons throughout my 10-15 year career, I've then been able to be like, Addy, bro, like, I think this is the best way.
Mm.
And then, I mean, at the end of the day, like, you don't see progression through ease. Like, you have to put yourself in an uncomfortable position if you want to improve.
Yeah. Like, even when I was talking about the triple flip, and it's just like how many times he just ate it.
Mm.
And he's just like, I had probably 30 attempts that just, and like attempting a triple backflip, like you've got some rotational force coming down when you mess that up.
Mm.
And then he's like, 30 doesn't seem like that many, but that's like, okay, but maybe I did hundreds of double flips and then probably crashed a heap of them as well.
Yeah.
So it's like, and he just said it was just that thing about he was nervous 2 days out because he's like, all right, I've got to do this, and I've told people I'm going to do this. No one's ever done this. Let's go give it a try. And like that mindset, it's funny because I think we're constantly around a lot of people that when people say that's impossible, they kind of laugh and go, watch this, and they then do it. But that's not a normal mindset to have, to say, oh, no one's ever done this in the entire world, I'm going to go try and do that. And then you do it. It's like, it was funny when there was like Harry Bink and Tom, and they were just chatting. It's like two triple, but like they have done like very few people have done triple backflip on anything, let alone a wakeboard and motocross bike. So it's just like to have that mindset is super rare. And do you feel like how did you, because obviously in what you do, you've got to be pushed to the very limit to be the best in the world. Where do you think you like cultivated that mindset to be like, it's not impossible?
I think, I mean, I don't know. For me, it's just like that. I just can't comprehend that. Like, I'm the biggest believer in. I mean, it is very cliche to say as well, but like, you don't achieve anything without work ethic, and if you don't work hard, you don't get anything. So, it doesn't necessarily matter what that crazy goal sentence is, as long as you put the right things in place and make sure you do the work that you need to do, you get it done.
Yeah, it's just a million little steps, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to put in the work to actually get it out. And like you say, it is, okay, it's funny, the hardest things in the world normally just start from a heap of little easy steps. It's like you say, like you got an ice bath today, you went for a run yesterday, you ate some good food, you're around the right people, you went to the gym. It's like,
you read a book, you journaled, you went to a new gym class that you've never done, or like whatever it is. Like, it can be so foreign and so out there, but to someone else it's so normal. And it's just a matter of putting the right things in place to then work yourself up towards that. And I think a big thing as well is a lot of people are very scared to put ideas and energy out into the world because of the potential idea of failure. But I think a big thing is accountability. And if you don't, whether like, and for a lot of different ways, like you can tell the world that you want to go and achieve this goal, or you can just write it down and make it real to yourself. But if you're not accountable to your own actions, then what are you doing? I think that's a big thing.
And I hear a lot of people, and I know I've been a victim of this in the past, where it's like you say you're going to do something just to put it out there, and just saying it gives you a little dopamine hit where you're like, ooh, yeah, that feels good. I've told people I'm going to do that thing. And it's like, you haven't done that thing.
I'm the same too. I've said things that I haven't done before. I mean, like, I remember years ago, like, it was kind of funny, like, one of our really good mates, Harry Brink, got to do the triple flip on a motorbike. I remember sitting down, we went to Oakberry on James Street, and I know I was like super excited to go to him, and it was actually really funny because he was in the exact same situation where we sat down and we caught up for an acai bowl, and I was like, dude, I want to tell you something. I'm going to start trying triple flips. And he was like, oh my God, no way. I literally wanted to tell you the same thing.
Did we just become best friends?
Yep. So yeah, like, he was actually accountable and made it happen, and I didn't, which is kind of funny. But
do you still want to give it a crack?
I mean, it's still there for sure. I think that was the biggest thing that I respected with Tom, was I knew how difficult it was, and I knew the risks involved. I remember, because it was a project that I was doing with Red Bull at the time, and I did 2 camps over the space of probably under 18 months, where I spent a week at a time trying triple flips. And I remember the first morning, got up 6 a.m., went out, lake was glass, had the most epic crew. Red Bull invested a fair amount of money into production crew and everything, and the first morning go out, had a couple of attempts the first morning, and then started to get a little bit frustrated with like not being able to commit to as many as I wanted, and then had a pretty bad crash and ended up having a seizure in the water. and just like fully lost control of my body. And then they like shipped me off to hospital and went and got tests and stuff done and all of that. And that was like pretty freaky for sure. So I guess like that was like the biggest thing that I respected about Tom was he treated the trick with the respect that it deserved, and I didn't. And I paid the price for it.
Do you think it was just with that frustration? You were just almost too ego to just like, no, I can do, like, how did the frustration flow into that, and obviously that crash that caused the seizure?
It was just a frustration of like I committed to a couple in that first set. Felt really good. I was like, oh my God, I can make this happen. I thought it was going to be easier than what it was. I didn't treat it the way it should be treated. I was like, oh, like, I got it. It's fine. I got it. Granted, I did a lot of preparation for it. I was down at the...
And you still want that mindset going in. You don't want to doubt yourself going into it, but it's like you're saying, it's like you want to have the belief that you can do it, but then also understand that this is...
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was probably just in denial with how difficult it was going to be. But I did a lot of preparation work for it. Like I spent months down at the Surfing High Performance Centre down at Cabarita on the trampolines and the foam pits and stuff, working with a high performance aerial coach, and did a lot of work around the triple flip before actually committing to it. So I was unbelievably confident and I knew that I could do it. But on the day, I definitely didn't respect the trick around actually attempting it. I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to go and do it. It's fine. Like, I got it. And the thing with something like that is it's so hard to explain to someone that doesn't wakeboard or understand the physics of the sport. But the way it's got to be done is the boat drives a certain direction. You come over the set wake or the rollers that the boat has previously set. And one, we're dealing with an element that is water that is ever changing. Granted, it's nothing compared to surfing where every wave is different. Like it is relatively consistent, but it still is water. It's always constantly moving and it's never consistent. And two, it's a timing thing. And three, the wakes are so big now that every time you hit one of these double ups, it's the equivalent of like, essentially when you hit the wake, it's like for a gym junkie, for example, it's like your max deadlift that you could only do one rep and you're done for the rest of the week. And then you got to take the impact of the landing as well. So it's like your max deadlift twice in 3 seconds, and then we're hitting double ups it probably takes 10 minutes to drive a certain double up. And I was out there doing 20, 30 double ups in a set. So it's just like physically it is so unbelievably demanding, and I didn't respect that aspect of it.
Mm. Also being out there when you've got a whole Red Bull crew of people that are... were they filming it as well?
Yeah, we had like 3 Reds, like 4 drones, safety crew, like... Yeah.
It's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of people going, okay, perform right now.
Yeah, I find that I perform better under pressure.
More there, yeah. More eyes.
I need it.
Yeah.
Like I know like some events that we go to on the world tour, there's a couple 100,000 people there.
Do you feel
other events, there's 0 people there. And I'm talking like 0 people on the bank other than just like the event organizers, parents, and the competitors. So like I always find that I do really well in an environment that there's more on the line, and I need to put myself in that position.
Do you reckon it focuses you in? It's like almost the louder it gets, the more internal you go.
You need to.
Yeah.
And that's when I perform my best.
Yeah, I was doing a race in France, and the races in France are always just next level, man. So many people, and literally started your run, and it was just horns and flares and sirens,
It's sick.
and it almost becomes like white noise.
It does.
It's just there, but it makes me go in, and it's like it's so loud that you can't actually hear yourself think, so you don't. You just react.
You just do.
And I remember I got it pretty much near the bottom, and there's a section of track that just didn't have people on it. It was just like an awkward section and where you couldn't really walk into. And I went through that, and it just went from this, like literally couldn't hear a thing. There's chainsaws, there's flares, there's sirens, and then it just went quiet. And I started to think, and I was like, oh man, like shit, like how's my run going? I'm like, what the fuck? Why am I thinking? And then like it just, I'm like, again, it comes back to the noise. The noise actually quietens down your mind, if anything.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you hear story. I think it was, I think this story in particular was Michael Schumacher, F1 driver. He, like, when he was racing and stuff, his best races is like there's smoke where the grandstands are, and the only thing he can see is just his racing lines. Like, he can't see anything else. There's nothing else that he can visibly see. He just sees his lines. And, like, we all know how big F1 is. Biggest sporting events in the world. Most people at those events in the world. So, like, they're the craziest, most media-driven events ever. But, like, for someone that could potentially be so distracted for so many different reasons, makes you perform better. Well, some people it does.
Some people it does for sure. I know other people, they get nervous when there's more people, and it's just like, how do you train that? Like, I'm sure maybe like the breath work, meditation, stuff like that, where you can focus in and obviously have thoughts come in your head and not react to them, just have them there.
I guess, like, one thing that I was really lucky to learn early on in my career was being nervous and being excited is the exact same emotion. You feel the exact same way. You feel the butterflies. You feel anxious. The only way to differentiate the two is, for me, comes from preparation. If I've prepared well and if I've done what I need to do leading into an event, I'm excited as hell. When there's doubts and when I know I haven't been doing my shit, that's when it's nerves. But they're the exact same emotion. You feel the exact same way. So it's just being able to decide which one you are.
Yeah. I know when I've been at events and you're that excited, you're just like, get me to like the finals. Get me there. Yeah. Like, all this is just wasting time now. Like, I'm so ready.
Couldn't agree more.
And then you flip it when you're nervous and you're like, I need more time. I'm not ready. My bike's not set up right. I'm not getting my tricks down.
Yeah.
But yeah,
100%.
That feeling, man, of just wanting it to be, and like, they're not a rare feeling, but you do know when you go into those events, and it's like there's nothing that can go wrong almost.
You're invincible.
Yeah. You're in that zone.
You're untouchable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you carry with it. I remember, like, and sometimes it even, like, I don't like to really speak about what's going to happen. Like, I just kind of like even if I'm confident, just do my thing in silence. But I go to some events and I'll just be telling my team, like, I'm going to get the podium this weekend. Like, I'm going to win. And like, just really like channeling that, and obviously not telling heaps of people, just be in my team environment. I'd just be like, I'm getting the podium. I remember one time I was in this place in Switzerland and I just kept telling them, I was like, I'm going to podium this weekend. I'm going to podium. I just kept saying it. I didn't end up, I got 7. So I was like, I think I was like a second off or something, but it was like my best result of the year. But I just remember it was that mindset shift of going into something going like, I want to do all right. And then mindset of, I'm going to win. And that little shift in your mindset can elevate you that 5% you need to go that extra mile or go that extra step. Do you feel that have you felt that before when you've been at an event and you switch it from like, I want to do well to I want to win? And have you felt that little extra bit of, I don't know, motivation or push to do that?
Yeah, I think for me, I also realize I am in a very different situation to a lot of other people. So I go into every event with the intention to win, and I know if I go out and perform and do what I plan to do, then I'm going to have a really good result. And I know I'm very lucky to be in that situation. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll always go into an event with the intention to win. It's because it's why I work so hard. It's because I want that satisfaction. And more recently, it's more like reassurance. It's like, oh, okay, like I'm doing what I need to do. Like I've spent 10 years getting to this point. Like I know what works. I know what doesn't work. And for me now it's just become so simple as long as I just follow my processes at home and on event day.
You should be sweet.
Yeah. But there's definitely times where I'm like, all right, like I'm not going to get beaten.
Yeah.
Like I'm not losing. Yeah. And then there's other times where it's like, all right, I'm going to win. And then other times it's like, I'm not losing.
Yeah.
You just know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's a feeling. And it's not like you're like, I'm not losing and you're like tense. It's like, I'm not losing and you're just like relaxed.
Oh, it's
like
the best feeling ever.
Yeah. I always had this thing where I'd be at the top of a run and I would be so confident that I wouldn't even like care. Like I'd kind of like, even just say I crashed or even if something happened, I completely got the idea of that as a negative out of my mind. I was like, almost like what will be is what will be. And I know every time I stopped caring about the result before my run, I would get a good result. So I was like shutting up from the expectation of this needs to be anything. And it's like almost appreciating just where you are. It's like this thing where you almost just like, this is amazing just as it is. Whether I win or lose in this next 3 minutes or however long the competition is, doesn't change how amazing this is. It's still like the cherry on top, and obviously you want to do it. But once you accept the fact that where I am and what I'm doing and who's here is already a win, you're like, well, if I crash and burn, still not a bad result kind of thing. It's like, I'm still here doing this.
Yeah.
And then you get up, brush your knees off and keep going and figure it out the next time. But it's accepting that, yeah, it's like it's a win before you even finish.
What's probably interesting about that too is a lot of people, like you always hear these stories of like, oh, you need to bring your intention internally to yourself. But there's a big difference in internal attention in your head and within your body. And what's probably happened there is if you have attention in your head, it can be so focused on the result and what you need and what you want to achieve and what you want to do versus just knowing what you do and knowing what you do best and just going out and doing that and accepting that there are things that you can't control, so you just focus on the things that you can control. And when you get away from the result and focus on the things that you can control, you can't control what position you're going to get, but you can control your performance.
Yeah, you see that all the time. Everyone tries to. You can't. Yeah, exactly. You just like solid words out of my mouth, but yeah, you can't control where you end up on that bit of paper.
Yeah.
So you get to the bottom of the hill and you give it all you've got. You have no control over what's going to happen. If someone beats you, they beat you.
Yeah.
And it's like, I always tell people, like, if you give the best version of yourself, if you give your best performance, no matter where you end up, you should be happy with that. And that's what you build on. You don't go, oh man, I didn't get 5th or 6th or 10th or whatever you were going for. But I'm like, did you give it and only you know everything you have. And it's like, did you actually give it everything? And if you can honestly say you did, I'm like, okay, well, that's where you're at right now. Now I need to focus on these little 1%ers to get you up a little bit further. But if that's the best you've got right now, don't be disappointed in that.
If that's the best you got, that's the best you got. And if you can go and... Like, it's very rare for a high-performance elite athlete in any industry, any craft, to fully perform at their 100% peak performance. But if you fully perform to your 100% of your ability and you're still not getting the result that you are wanting for, then you should be unbelievably stoked with your performance, because it's very rare to perform at your best. at any given time. But if you do and you're not getting the results that you want, that's something you can change at home. You can't change that on the day. The only thing you can change on the day is how you perform and how you prepare. But if you can, like, yeah, for that example, like if you fully believe that you performed at your 100% of your best and you're still not getting results, then you can't change that day.
No.
You
And
do your
then
best.
I don't know if you've seen this, but the most motivated I've possibly been and the most motivated I've seen other people being is probably 10 minutes after a race, whether they did well or didn't do well. It's that you're on that adrenaline high of like you've just either done well or you've just been beaten and I want to do better. I'm going to go home to the gym. I'm going to do, and like that's not when you need it. That's not when you need the motivation. You need the motivation when you're at home and it's 4 a.m. and it's raining and you got to get up and go do hill sprints of some sort or do something. Like that's when it matters. These people that I get so motivated at the event. It's like, it's already too late.
It's too late.
It's too late. You're there.
Yeah.
It's like all the work that you should have been doing was when no one was watching, when no one gave a shit. That's when you become the person that stands on that podium. That's when you do well. It's like when you get to the event, I'm like, I'm so motivated now because I'm here because there's cameras in my face and there's lights and there's all this. I'm like, it's too late, bro. You're so done.
Yeah.
And no matter how excited you get or nervous you get in that moment, if you don't, like you say, if you haven't done the prep, it's just you're wasting everyone's time more or less.
Yeah, 100%. I guess like it's funny you said that too, because there's been a couple years over the last few years, I guess you could, like, more recently. Dude, that's what I enjoyed about my craft, is doing shit that I know no one else is doing.
The grind.
Yeah. Like, that was the stuff that I enjoyed. I hated doing it. I hated doing it. No one wants to sit in a 0-degree ice bath at 6 in the morning or 10 at night. You're still at the gym working out. Whatever it is. Doesn't matter what you're doing. But I loved the fact that I was doing shit that no one else was. And I got so much out of it.
So you build your confidence, man. And
it's hard. And it sucks. But there's no growth in comfortability. The only way you can grow is through uncomfortable.
It's it's the truth. It's just that shitty thing, hey, where it's like everyone strives for comfort and pleasure and this nice life, and you go, well, you're not probably going to get that much out of that. It's nice to sit in it for a little bit, but don't get stuck in it.
You need a balance. You definitely need a balance for sure. I'm not going to sit here and preach, you need to be uncomfortable every second of your life. It's like, no, dude, you're going to be miserable. And like, that's going to suck, and you're going to hate what you're doing, and you're not going to see it through. You do need a balance, but it comes back down to work ethic for me. If you work hard and you do shit other people aren't doing, more likely than not, you're not going to see the results on a short-term basis, but you will see them on a long-term.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people now, and it's just the life that we live, our attention spans are so short. We watch 5-second videos on Instagram instead of 5-minute videos on YouTube. Like, our attention spans are so short. We want everything now. We want everything in 5 minutes. But if you can see it through, you will see results long term, and no one can rob you of that.
Yeah, if you've got the commitment to actually stick something out.
Yeah.
Like, properly stick it out. And it is, and even it's funny, like, the athlete mindset is such a powerful mindset, because it's like, how do I be better? And like, you be so strict on yourself, and you have all these rules and stuff, and you do obviously build yourself into a person that is going to compete at the highest level. And now it's funny coming out of that and then trying to implement that into like a business version, but then you can still, I feel like, be more lenient on like yourself in a health version. So it's like, I don't have to push myself, but then I still have that, like, but I don't want to get fat. Like, I don't want to get unfit. I want to still have a challenge. I need to put something, like, you even look at Coop doing like the 100K run. Like, it's like, there's something in us that you're like, if I set a goal, then I'm going to work my ass off to achieve that goal. And if you don't have a goal, then it's just easy to go, oh, I'm just going to sit on the couch, or I'm just going to sleep in, or I'm just going to eat that thing. And it's just like, that seems fine in a moment, but then how many moments does it take before that's your
Blown out
life?
of proportion.
Yeah, that's your life now.
Yeah. I think that's also one thing that we're very lucky to have in our lives is comes back to accountability. If you tell yourself something, like, we're very lucky we have that successful athlete mind to where we can tap into that. But, like, you keep yourself accountable with what you want to do, whether if that's in your personal life or your business life. They do correlate with each other.
I think as well, if you got a normal person that started training, not quite like an elite athlete, but like an athlete, and I'm sure that the flow-on effect would be their whole life would become better in probably all aspects. It's like, just pretend like you're training, or even just train for something, like whatever you do, whether it's like maybe you play football or hockey or you're a runner or something, like just set up a training program for the next 6 weeks that every day you're going to get up, you're going to have a program, you're going to have recovery, you're going to have everything like that, and see how that then flows into the rest of your life in a positive. You probably have more energy to do more stuff at work. You'll probably look better, so you probably attract better people. Like, all these things will happen. You go, oh shit, just from implementing one thing that's like that athlete mindset. Or even do it in business, like set a goal in business and then like start ticking off those things instead of just kind of going through day-to-day life as, oh, like I'll do this then or I'll do that then, like not having any like plan or structured around it. So I think that's the biggest thing as an athlete. Like you say, if you don't structure and plan, you get to the event and you're like, fuck, I'm nervous now. And now I have all these eyes on me. And then that's just going to be like set up for failure. I wanted to touch back because we kind of skipped over. We kind of got sidetracked on when you were going for it happens. When you were going for the triple flip and obviously you had the seizure, how was that coming back from that? Because that's obviously, like, for me, that seems like a nightmare to have that happen in water. It's like just that mental barrier to then go, all right, get back. And then did you try it again after that, or were you just like, I'm going to put this on hold for a while?
Oh, yeah, no, it was fine. I got back out the next day.
That's what I mean. This is normal. That's not normal. Like, it's like, I know that mindset. But it's just like to try and express that to people. It's like you just try to do something that's never been done in the world. You have a massive crash. You have a seizure in the water, and you go, all right, see you tomorrow. See you at work.
Yeah, no, I went to the hospital. They checked me out. All, like, everything was fine. They were like, yeah, just like take a break. Like at least like take the day off. And I was like, yeah. And then like I was like pretty tired through the whole day that day, and then woke up next day, back out on the boat, started hucking them again. Like,
how close did you get?
I mean, 2 3/4. Yeah.
Also, the thing that Tom's got going for him that you don't is he's a lot smaller. He's a lot more compact for rotation. Is that something that it's almost like you'd almost have to change your body in a way? Because obviously you can't change your height, but even like your weight or something to make the rotations easier. Like, is it different factors that come into play? Like, he's so compact.
Wakeboarding would be so easy if I was his weight.
your poor knees.
It'd be so much easier. But yeah, like I think the most impressive thing about it is we're so limited with the technology that we have, and the technology has improved tenfold in the past 10 years. But you look at sports like snowboarding, for example. If you want to do more rotations, you build a bigger jump. We can't do that. It's more up to the athlete's ability versus the equipment that you are using. And that's the most impressive thing. So, yeah, I have so much respect for that man. Like, the fact that, one, I watched him through the whole process for 3 years, dedicating himself to it, which is incredible in its own. But the fact that he was actually able to do it and made it possible it's so unbelievably difficult that only a handful of people in the entire world will have ever even put themselves in that position to even attempt it.
Yeah, to even want to try it.
Yeah. Like, dude, he's one. How many people are in the world? He's 1 in 7 billion people that can do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a big achievement. Such a big achievement.
I was going to say, talking about achievements, I want to talk about, you went on Red Bull when you were 16. How was that?
Yeah, that was epic. Dude, I still remember it so clearly to this day. I was riding for a boat company, and the Australian distributor was like, hey, let's fly down to Sydney. Let's shoot some content, and let's just bring in some energy for the summer this season and have a fun little photo shoot. And I was like, yeah. 16, I was like, yeah, hell yeah. So I flew down, and then stayed the night, woke up the next morning, and he was a ex-pro wakeboarder as well. And at the time, he was with Red Bull. His name was he's still here. His name's Josh Sanders. And Josh was like, that morning, he goes, oh, hey, like, just like one of my buddies from Red Bull is just like going to come out, and like he's just like giving me my updated contract or whatever. He's like, don't worry about it. I don't care, whatever. And I'd been talking to Red Bull off and on for 5 years up until this point.
So when you're 11?
Yeah, I think I like first kind of connected with them when I was like 10 or 11 years old. Obviously, just like through it at a distance, and like, but that's what Red Bull do. They watch their athletes and they spend time and get to know them and make sure that they're a good fit for their brand, not only at a high performance level, but on a human person, like on a human level as well. And they want to see the person you are and if it's going to be a good fit for their brand. So I'd connect with them a couple times over the years. And within like, I reckon like 12 months before it, we were like talking more and more. And then like hadn't heard anything. I was like, oh, damn it. Like they've ghosted me again. Like, cause like I'd speak to them and then I wouldn't hear from them for like 18 months. And then like I'd speak to them and then wouldn't hear from them for like 12 months. And then I'd be like, oh yeah, whatever. It's like, haven't heard from them again for a while.
Been a tease.
Yeah, dude. Like that was the biggest tease ever. But so worth it. But yeah, he was like, yeah, like my Red Bull guy's just gonna come and like just give me my updated contract, like whatever. And I'm like, oh, dude, I don't care. Like I'm so oblivious, dude, bro. Like I don't read into signals. So we're on the like put the boats in. We're like getting ready to like start shooting or whatever. And the athlete manager's name was Simon Barrett at the time. And Simon like had a backpack with him, and like we're like on the boat at this point, and like gave Josh like a few bits of paper, which would have been like his updated contract and everything, and like gave him some new hats. And then Simon literally just like looks over to me, reaches his hand into his bag and goes, oh, here, these are yours too. And I literally looked at him and I was like, dude, like I can't, like I'm not allowed these. Like they're Josh's. Like I'm not allowed. I'll
get in trouble.
And he was like, "No, these are yours." And I was like, "Wait, what?" He goes, "Dude, they're yours." I'm like, "What the fuck?" I remember it so clearly, bro. So clearly, it was. I mean, career-wise, winning world championships and winning titles and stuff, like they're obviously incredible, and you work so hard to get those moments, but that is something that I'll never forget.
Yeah. It's the whole Red Bull athlete thing is just globally known as, like, it kind of elevates your image in whatever industry that is, or just as a whole, really. It's just like people that aren't even into like a certain sport see that hat and go, oh, he's a Red Bull athlete.
Mm.
And no matter what, skiing, snowboarding, surfing, whatever it is, you're like, oh, he must be good at it. kind of thing. You know what I mean?
We try to. We try to be.
In saying that though, because we talk about, like, obviously you said you like pressure, like that hat carries with it a certain, or helmet or whatever it may be, that carries with it a certain level of pressure. Did you feel that the weight of that, wearing that hat when you first started competing and being on that team?
Not necessarily.
It was fine.
It started out from when I was younger. My old man was always my harshest critic. He was always pushing me to reach my potential that he knew I had, and then he knew that was within me. And then that shifted to myself being my worst critic and myself putting the most pressure on myself than any other company, any other contract, any other event, any other person could even come close to. So I was stoked to be a part of the team, but there was never added pressure because I was always putting it all on myself. But it was because I knew my worth and I knew what I wanted.
Yes, it didn't matter what they said.
No. I mean, they've never, like, I mean, obviously, there's, like, bonuses and stuff. Like, you want to do well if you win this event, you make more money, and then you get this bonus from a lot of different companies. It's not just Red Bull, but the money's great, but it's
yeah, I wasn't saying so much the bonuses. Obviously, money plays a factor, and you obviously want to do well to make money. But it was just the image of what Red Bull carries with it, like being such a global brand. And like I said, it's like you've got a Red Bull hat on, you're kind of the guy in whatever sport that may be. Like you don't see many people rocking a Red Bull hat and they're not at the pinnacle of their sport. So it's just that little added extra little bit to go, oh shit, there's like probably a few more eyes on me now, a few more people watching, and there's like you kind of. Like you said before, you like the pressure, so it probably just elevated you more.
Yeah, maybe. I think like if there was added pressure from wearing a Red Bull hat and wearing a Red Bull helmet, I haven't felt it. Red Bull is the most supportive and encouraging company to work with. That there is so far from any added pressure. From being a part of the brand.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't say from them as a company, just from, I guess, external, from just, I know in just like action sports, you wear a Red Bull hat somewhere, probably a few more people are going to look your way. And just all of that piling up at an event, when you're just like, fuck, there's a few more people looking at me, and this girl's coming up to me, and there's this, and like that just, it's, you see some people that become the man, and it changes how they perform, because they almost start drinking their own Kool-Aid in a way. And I think it could even come back to that whole thing, like you said, you didn't have the respect for the triple flip, and then that kind of bit you in the ass. And I think it's like when people don't have the respect for the image that they've created in a sport, that can also bite them on the ass, because they're almost like, oh, I'm the man. And like, you should feel like you're the man, but sometimes when that gets externally pushed out, the reaction back can then affect them. Like, it's even funny when you see someone become world champion or win like a motocross title or something like that. The next year they just kind of flop. And in our sport, we always had this, there was like almost this curse of like the world champs jersey. People would get it and then they'd just start having terrible results. And that's like, you've got more eyes on you. You're the world champion now. And other people get it and they elevate themselves. Like this mate of mine, Reese Wilson, he became world champion, and he was a great rider. And a lot of people said that he became world champion because it was a really wet, shitty race, and it's like kind of can go either way. You still got to be a good bike rider. I think you need to be a better bike rider. But some people say luck gets thrown more into like a wet race than a dry race. Anyway, he ended up winning it, and a lot of people were like, oh, he only won because it was muddy. He only won because it was wet. And
that's so much more difficult.
Yeah, but he came out and used that, man, and he was like, watch this. And then the year after, he just was like, good result after good result after good result, and he ended up winning a World Cup at the end of the year. And it was like this weight off his shoulders that it was like, see, see, I am a good rider. I can win in the wet. I can win in the dry.
Yeah,
But
I can do it all.
other people I've seen become world champion, they've just floundered. They've just like, they just crash. They get better results. But it's like, I guess the thing that the Red Bull hat and a world champs jersey have in common is more people looking at you.
Mm.
And I think that was the kind of more or less the added pressure, not from the company or the industry, but yeah, more from just fans and people in general.
Yeah, I see. I 100% see where you're coming from, and depends on the person. That can be very accurate.
Just you're a 16-year-old kid as well, man. Like that's a big thing at 16.
Yeah. I've been very lucky. My family has always kept me very humble, and whenever I do step out of line, they whip me straight back in. So I'm very lucky that I have the support team in my life that I do, and they've never they've let me have my moments. And I think as a person, you need to ride high on confidence, and there's a fine line between confidence and cockiness, but they've always kept me very humble. And I guess going back to that that world championship curse that you mentioned, like, I'm a big believer in what happened last year is last year's business. That doesn't mean anything. That's in the past. You're only as good as your last result. And if your last result is last year, then it means nothing this year. So I feel like every time I've been lucky enough to win a few titles now. But
Yeah, how many world titles have you won? Oh, you lost count.
No, it's weird because wakeboarding we have a single event that's called the world titles and like the world championships, and that single event is different to the overall championship.
Same. Yeah, mountain bike. Yeah.
So, and they do that for the amateur divisions and like the younger age groups coming up, so that they then have the opportunity to go and compete for a world title, which I think is really important. So I've won 5 single world championship events, and then 4 overall championships, and then there's a separate tour which I've won that once or twice.
Stacking them up.
So
Do you find, because in the World Championships we've got the one-off event, you wear the full like rainbow jersey, everything, and people like weigh up whether that's of more important than like an overall victory?
No way.
That's what I mean. The overall victory, like you've got to shop like 5, 6, 7, 8 times.
Yeah.
Qualifying
It's a
race.
whole year that goes into it versus like you have one good day.
And that's the thing. But then everyone's like, but the added pressure, blah, blah. I'm like, nah.
There's no added pressure. The same events, like a world
same
like
people.
For me, the World Championships is the same event as any other tour stop that I go to.
Mm.
It's equivalent to the same amount of points that leads to the overall championship. The same people compete in that event versus every other event anyway. So like for us at like the top elite level, like the World Championship's the same as any other World Tour event.
Yeah. I agree, and I think the overall is a harder thing, or like it should be more important.
Yeah.
But then people that win the world champs, like he's the world champion. Like it's like the overall World Cup winner, and then the world champion. And I was like, the other guy should be the world champion.
Yeah.
He actually raced around the world.
Yeah.
Didn't race at one event.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
That's just my 2 cents. What were we saying then? We were going before we talked about how many titles you've won. It was going.
But yeah, I'm a big believer in like whatever happens last year is last year's business. Like if you hold yourself on something that you've done in the past, you're going to hurt yourself in the future.
Yeah.
So I've always come into every year, whether if I've won the championship or not, that's last year's business. Like that's done. That doesn't mean anything. That's not like for me, winning the championship last year isn't going to make me win the championship this year. What is once again coming back to work ethic, making sure I'm doing everything that I need to do to then put myself in a position and give myself an opportunity to win the championship.
Yeah, don't be complacent.
Yeah.
I know I can give some advice to anyone listening, but I had a really good year in 2015. It was like the fastest up and coming racer, got good results, got a podium, like we're on the rise, and I celebrated. I enjoyed that, but
And
then
you should.
You should.
You celebrate the wins, because
did-
you become a robot if you don't.
100%. But I got comfortable with like the idea of, well, I'm already doing so good, and then I got comfortable with that. And I was like, I'll just do that again, and then came out the next year, and I went from you shouldn't doubt yourself, but you should prepare. I don't even know how to word this. But I'm trying to say like you should prepare like no one knows who you are, and you want to make a statement when you come out, even if you are the world champion. Like you want to prepare like no one knows who you are. You're the underdog here. You're coming out swinging, because I went out of that year being so confident that like, oh yeah, I'll just come back and back that up and do it again. And because of that, I partied hard. I didn't train properly, and I came out in 2016, and it was like the worst year of my racing career.
Bro, I did the exact same thing.
Just floundered, yeah.
I did the exact same thing. My rookie year, I can't remember the position, like where I ended up overall or whatever. But my rookie year, had a really good year. Next year, finished a couple places down. Third year, finished a couple places down again. And then kind of got into a spiral and like just started partying a bunch and like just was doing the sport for all the wrong reasons. And it took time. Like I needed to take time away from the industry and I kind of asked myself some deep questions and be like, all right, like why am I doing this and why do I want to do this? And I found that I was doing it for all the wrong reasons. And then I found a really, really good balance with like how much I needed to devote myself to the sport and how much time I needed away from the sport. And then started doing it all for the right reasons. And that was a big thing. And then my results started coming back up again.
You almost, and that's again when a good mentor comes in to teach you. But I feel like some people, including myself, that are super stubborn, it's almost you need to touch the hot plate to realize it's hot. It's like you need to go too far to go, oh, that's too far, and come back.
You learn from your own mistakes.
Yeah.
You can learn from other people's mistakes, but you learn your best life lessons through your own mistakes.
Well, I just think most people that have really high level driven people, they have that thing where I'm like, I don't believe it until I feel it, until I touch it, until I experience it. And as bad as that is, like you should obviously learn from other people, but sometimes it's like I got to find out for myself. I got to see this for myself.
You got to.
And then you go through it and you go, okay, well, like you said, then you found the balance. And I did the same. I found the balance, but almost like torpedoed my whole racing career through just some bad decisions that compiled over a course of, I was only probably over like 8 months maybe, but just, I think I stopped seeing a coach I was like, oh, I got this. And then started.
But you needed that.
Yeah.
Like in hindsight, you need that. You need times of adversity so that you can then realize like why you're doing the thing that you do.
Yeah, your why behind it.
Yeah.
I've got a few more questions. I know you got to get out of here soon, so I'll wrap it up quickly. But I asked you to come up with your favorite quote and why.
A couple, I guess. One that stuck with me for a long time. I learnt this through a friend of mine who isn't here anymore. But he was like the epitome of living his life all in, within any aspect of his life, whether if it was just grabbing a coffee from your local cafe and you spark up a conversation, he was all involved in that conversation. If it was his training sessions, his intention was fully 100% in. So after my really good mate Alex Chumpy Pullen passed away, I really kind of took that on personally, and that was like my way of having him still live on in my life in a way. And it was really cool because I was like in the beginning stages of my career and he was like at the end part of his career. So like we had a lot of conversations back and forth and bounced off each other a lot, and he was like a really good mentor for me for a lot of things outside wakeboarding, but still involved in high performance and action sports. So I learned a lot from him, and that was like my way to still keep him involved in my life. So All In was one, and then I got another one. This is like more recently that I've like tried to implement this into my own life. And I got this from Harry, but do you want to be the villain or the hero of your story? Who are you going to be? That's one thing I try and live by at the moment.
Yeah, you figure out when you go into situations, you got to almost ask yourself, like, what I'm doing right now, is that going to make me the hero? Is that going to make me the villain?
Mm.
Yeah, and looking at yourself in almost that third person perspective of like, well, which road am I going down right now?
Mm.
And is this going to be good or bad?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that one makes me be a little more hard on myself, but I love that one. I love that one. It's just a really, really good way to, it's a good self-reflection tool, I find. But it just helps me hopefully make right decisions the majority of the time.
Well, it's this idea, and it's like you hear about people that visualize good outcomes, but it's also good to visualize bad outcomes. Like if I go down this path, like what's the best that could happen? But if I go down that path, what's the worst that could happen? And I want to do this. Do you remember? There's negatives that come from going down a path, but there's also negatives that come from just staying where you are as well. And for some reason, this like idea came into my mind the other day. But do you remember that video of the chairlift that malfunctioned and the chairs were coming down and getting flung off, and people were getting flung off it? Did you ever see that?
Like at the snow?
At the snow, yeah. There's this video. It went viral for a bit, but there's like I'm not sure where it was, but this thing, I think it was in Canada maybe, and this chairlift was like in reverse and people were coming down. It was literally like flinging people off. Like it was gnarly, man. I can show you afterwards. But some of the people coming back down, some of them jumped off, some of them didn't. And it's just like that perfect analogy of if fear keeps you somewhere, it's probably going to have a negative reaction. Like the people were obviously scared to jump off this lift, but they jumped off and it was like, oh, that was fine. I landed on snow. The person that stayed on the lift got smoked. So it's like your idea of where you are right now, and you go, well, I'm just going to stay here because it's safe. And you're not doing something because there's fear in change or fear in a new direction. Like there's this, you can, and Jim Carrey has a speech about this, and he talks about his dad was an accountant and he didn't want to change because of fear. And then he got fired from that job anyway. So it's like the whole thing, you cannot change because of fear, and then you're still going to get smoked by a chairlift. Like it's like just because you're scared of change doesn't mean being in a safe place right now. It doesn't mean you're always going to be in a safe place. So it's like, look at the outcomes, look at where you're going, whether that, like, because look at where you are right now. If you keep doing exactly what you're doing right now, in 5 years, are you the hero or the villain? And it's like you have to work that out, because you go, okay, well, I don't want to be the villain, so I'm going to have to change that. Then change that and then look down that path and be like, okay, if I'm doing this in 5 years, I'm going to be the hero and the villain. I'm like, oh, I'm going to probably be the hero.
Complacency is a killer.
Yeah.
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 100%.
It's massive.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, do you have a point where you can think of like probably the worst point in your life and how you helped yourself get out of that point?
I think it was like, probably wasn't like one single thing. It was more of like, it was a combination of two. So, I was in the States, Chumpy passed away. That was really difficult. That was like really the first time I discovered loss. And I know everyone dealt with that situation very differently. He meant a lot to a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. My experience with it was I was in the States and it was during COVID as well. So like travel was weird. Couldn't necessarily get back in time and blah, blah, blah. So he passed away and I just felt very alone in the States. Like I had some unbelievably supportive friends around me that were trying to help me out as much as they could. But I felt like at the end of the day, I was the only one that was feeling the way I felt. Like I had support, but I was the only one in the trenches. So I felt very alone in that situation. And then 12 months later, literally the same month, the following year, my mum got diagnosed with breast cancer. And I was just like, oh, here we go again. Like I literally just started to feel normal again. And then this just stockpiles onto it. And initially, I was just done. I was so over it. I was like, all right, well, I need to come home. Like I'm over it. I'm done. But I was very, very lucky. My family really stepped up, and they were unbelievably supportive. And I was talking to them on an hourly basis, and I said to them, if anything, if the mum situation changes by the slightest, I need to know, and I'm coming home. And they were filling me in through every step of the way. I felt like I was there, even though I wasn't there. So that wasn't as difficult because I felt more supported, and I felt like I was a part of what everyone was going through at home. So at first, initially, that was like probably the most difficult thing. But in a very weird way, I felt way more supported than ever before.
How'd you kind of come out of it and return things to normal or feel? And is your mum doing okay now?
Yeah, mum handled it like a champ. She was really lucky. She worked in a cancer ward for 10, 15 years, dealing with patients that had cancer, and she dealt with chemotherapy every single day. So, and she was dealing with like working with the best doctors in Queensland. So like, it was actually a coincidence that she ended up getting breast cancer. But in hindsight, she got in with the best doctors in Queensland. She had the best people around her. So, and she caught on to it very, very early as well. So, she was in the best hands. My family reassured me of that. And every single conversation was just speaking of her situation. And if anything changes, then like we all made an agreement that if something changed, I was coming home. So I felt supported and I felt like I was a part of everything, even though I was separated. So I felt comforted in a very, very weird way.
Yeah, and that helped pull you out of it all. Yeah.
Yeah. So because I felt like I was a part of the whole road to recovery
Process, yeah.
it wasn't as negative as it was. But like when I first got the news, I remember I was out to dinner with like a bunch of my mates in Orlando, and my brother calls me and it's just like, dude, I need to tell you something. And I think I left dinner. I think we like took like 2 cars there, and I just left everyone there. I just drove home. I was like, yeah, I don't need to be here. So like that was really difficult right at the beginning, but I also felt very comforted the entire time.
Yeah, connection with people as you go through it.
Yeah.
Let's flip that. What do you reckon the happiest or best day of your life or moment in your life has been?
I mean, it's hard. Like, I mean, winning world championships and stuff is like obviously great. For me now, it's more like it's just reassurance that like I am on the right path and I am putting in the work that I need to. Winning a title after those 2 years felt pretty good. But definitely last year, after like dealing with like a bunch of like ankle issues and stuff, and ended up having like a completely blown out ankle for the whole season last year, which I'd got incorrect information on from doctors in the States and stuff. They told me I just had like a sprain, but like it was like a bunch of broken bones, torn ligaments, like the whole thing was shattered. And it was the way I had to manage my year through injury last year was like unbelievably difficult. And then to have that moment where it was like down to the last, like it was so tight coming into the last event, and I had to win. I had to win the event. And Dad flew over for it, made a big effort to fly all the way to Portugal over in Europe. I had all my best friends there. And after like just dealing with like the annoyance of my ankle all year, and to go out and have like one of the best performances I've probably have had throughout my whole career, that felt pretty good. But like, I don't know, it's hard because like I said, I feel like I've always strived to separate myself from my work. And you have career-wise best days of your life, and then personal life, you have different sides of that too. And like you always hear like, oh, when you get married, that's the best day of your life, or when you have your first kid, that's the best day of your life. But like personally for me, like every day I get to hang out with my brother's kids, like my nephew and my niece, because I sacrifice so much and I choose to be away from their life for 6 months every year. That, dude, I love those kids so much. Like every day I get to be with them is like the best day ever, because I have to go away from them, and it's so hard for me.
Yeah, you come back and they're so much different.
Yeah.
And you feel like you're missing something.
Oh, you miss out on half their life every year.
Yeah.
It sucks. It's the worst thing ever.
Yeah. That's a big thing that, again, a lot of normal people go, your life's amazing. You're like,
it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Well, it's just you can't have everything, man.
Yeah, you
it's
can't.
Like you want this exciting life, you travel in the world and you go to cool places. That is amazing. Not taken away from that. You want a family and kids, and you want to at least see your family's kids. It's like, it's just something you don't get as much of. You still do get it, but yeah, you come back. I had the same thing. I'd see my brother's little girl, and she was like nervous to see me because she didn't know who I was, because I just wasn't there.
That was hard in the beginning when they were younger. Yeah.
Like, who's this? And you're like, that's your uncle.
Yeah.
And now she loves me, and I see her, and I'm like, oh.
I remember one year I came home from the States, and my nephew is named Jules, and I went over to their place, like straight from the airport, went over there, and I'm like standing like in the living room. I'm on one side of the living room, Jules is on the other side of the living room, and I'm like, Julesy, like, fuck, come give me a cuddle, dude, I miss you. And he literally ran the other way and just started crying. I was just like, oh my God, dude. I was just like, really? Like,
no.
Yeah, that was heartbreaking.
Yeah. My brother's little girl would hide behind like my brother, or and you'd be like, and they're like, I just want to hug. Yeah, we're family, Ohana.
I know. So yeah, it's like, it's so hard, dude. So like, especially now, like as I'm getting older, and like, the more I realize that wakeboarding is a job and not a life, it gets harder and harder.
Yeah, your values shift. And I guess you're probably, like, I saw Cooper retire from surfing, and you see the life that he's living now, and he's still super fulfilled and enjoying it and got challenges and does all this stuff. And he was definitely a motivating factor to see someone retire from an extreme sport and be quite good at it, and then go into a different life and then still be really good at that.
He was a big influence for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
We had a lot of conversations around your story is, I'd tell so many people, one of the most inspirational things that I've ever come across. But I know Cooper was a very, very big influence for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I chat to him and it's like your heart's not in something, don't stay in it. It's like, if we, like, life is so short. Like, it's okay to pivot. It's okay to go down a new direction, and that thing's going to have challenges and things you don't like, but it's going to have other things you like. And you kind of got to know yourself well enough to go. I remember I was going for rides, man. I'd be out in the forest by myself and just be like, I'd rather be anywhere else than right here, right now.
I remember that.
And it was just like, at that point.
That was like a period of like 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was up here like training, and I just remember like I was doing heaps of gym training because I just wanted to be around people, man. I got so sick of training by myself. So I'd go, like, I was doing heaps of gym training, which looking back probably I got quite big and strong, but I'm like, I should have been lighter and more like cardio with more road bike riding and all that stuff. But there wasn't really that many people to train with up here. Like, being an elite athlete in a sport that's like, the Gold Coast doesn't have big mountains. It's like, you don't really come here to be a mountain bike racer. So
yeah.
I was just training by myself 24/7, and I just felt isolated. And I was like, I don't want to be isolated anymore. I'm over it.
Perfectly natural too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one thing I was always jealous about, like wakeboarding. Like, you go out with like 5 or 6 people. You got your crew of people. I used to love mountain biking when I had a crew of people to ride with. And then you end up just riding by yourself all the time. And I'm like, kind of want to hang out with some people, want to be connected with people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's being okay. And when I accepted it, it was like, thank fuck I finally accepted it and
Felt
became
so much lighter.
Yeah, and like, I'm gonna miss it, man. Like, I'm definitely, like, especially these young kids I've been helping, they're just going over to race. And this kid that I helped mentor, he just actually, I think it'll get announced today that he's gonna be riding for this, like, one of the best teams in the entire world.
Oh my God,
and
epic.
I just remember helping him when he was 14, and now he's got to do that. And like, I'd love to go over and see him compete on this team and race and do all that, but it's like, you've got to put yourself first and know that this isn't working anymore. And like, honestly, like, I got injured because my heart wasn't in it. Like, I didn't want to be there. I was checked out. Like, I was physically there, mentally and emotionally, I was checked out. Like, as soon as I announced my retirement, I was like, okay, like, I didn't want to go to America. I was like, I just want to go home. Like, it's over. And then look what happens when you're not fully in something, especially in something so dangerous.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, shifting's good. Changing is good.
Complacency is killer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll get 2 more questions for you before we boost.
Yeah.
What are you scared of?
Snakes, for one.
Yeah. Fair. Very fair.
Claustrophobic, number 2. I was never claustrophobic. And then I remember we were in Italy for an event over there, and it was the World Championships again. But it was one of those World Championships where, like, the Australian government sends a team of 10 to go over and compete for Australia. You'd have your Australian uniform. You got the coat of arms on your uniform and everything. And the Australian team was running late to the opening ceremony of the event. So we squeezed 8 people in a 4-person lift to try and all get up and quickly get changed and leave the event. And we got stuck halfway, like a quarter way, like in between levels. And yeah, from that moment, I do not enjoy being in confined spaces that I cannot get myself out of at any given time.
How long were you stuck for?
Bro, we were there for like 2 hours. Oh. It was the worst. Bro, elevators get hot.
Especially crammed 8 people in a 4-person lift.
Oh my God, they get hot. Dude, we were like, within minutes, we were dripping in sweat.
Oh, bro.
It was disgusting. It was so gross.
So fair. Just someone throw some snakes in to really just get your phobias just going. God.
Dude, there's I like watching I can't remember which Jackass movie it was, but it was one where like they made this like pit and put like an artificial floor. So when someone, like, it was like a 10 8-foot pit, so like you couldn't get out of it. And one of them drops in, and then they bring in like these snake wranglers and just throw in like buckets of snakes. Like that is my worst nightmare. Being in a space that I can't get myself out of and being stuck in that space with snakes, no.
Yeah, that's not a fair.
Nah.
Note to self.
But I guess like they're like shallow fears, but like
Oh no, the pit of snakes that's fair. That's fair.
That's fair. But I mean, my biggest fear is losing my family. Like for me, family is my number one most important thing in the world, and I try not to think of it, but every time it does cross my brain, I'm terrified if I ever get to when I lose a family member. Yeah,
it's funny. Jordan Peterson has this thing. It's like, because I used to think, I was like, if my I don't know, just for some reason, it's like if they died for some reason, I remember I just had this feeling like I just run away, and like hide. I have to leave. I just had this weird urge to think that like if just say my mum and dad passed away, I just have to get out of here. Like I just couldn't be around people. I wouldn't want to be able to deal with like the mourning and then people be like, you okay? And all that. I was like, I have to get away. And then I remember I read Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules to Life. And one of the things is like, who are you going to be at your father's funeral? Like what man are you going to be at your father's funeral? And it made me think about that. It's like, you now have to be the person that carries that role, and you need to show up. And I was just like, you can't run away. You got to like show up and be that person that goes, okay, I'm now have to play that role of like the father figure in the family. And I had a friend, Pat Murtagh, I don't know if you know who he is. He's from the Goldie, and his dad passed away like I think a couple of years ago now.
You've told me this story.
Yeah, and he had a sister and his mum, and he's like, well, I got to show up as the father figure now. And he's actually, the motivation of that happening made him push himself so hard with his training that he started playing for the Suns, and he got better at that. And then he got selected, drafted over to the NFL, and he just got signed.
Good on him, man.
So it's like,
good on him.
That going through that, he's like, that's what's taught him the most, because he had to play that role. And it's like, obviously you don't wish that upon anyone, but it's like, fuck, man, you got to you're going to run away, like I guess I used to think, or you're going to show up? And I guess he showed up, and it's like how far he's going. Because he's like, I just want to do so well that I can support my mum and my sister. I'm like, fuck, if you need some fuel, man, that's a good bit of fuel. And it's obviously paying off now.
Yeah. Once again, victim or hero mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to use it.
Yeah.
Last question so I can let you go, because I know you got to go pick someone up.
Yeah.
How do you want to
my girl
how do you want to be remembered?
Bro, I guess, I don't know. I never think of myself of like someone that's elite, or I never think of myself as someone that's successful. I feel like I'm just always a student and a rookie to the game. So like it's weird for me to like think post. Like there's two ways to look at it, right? Professional, personal. Professional, someone that dedicates themselves and their full self to something that is bigger than them and will do everything in their power to achieve what they set out to achieve, and will not take sacrifices and won't listen to criticism. A lot of fuel in the early days was proving people wrong. I loved doing that when I was younger. So professionally, like someone that is just unbelievably dedicated to their craft and what they want to achieve. Personally, someone that wants someone that enjoys being present, enjoys the highs and lows of life, is passionate, is caring, is loving for the people that I choose to have in my life. I choose to have I don't have a big crew of friends in my life, but the small people that I do decide to bring into my inner circle, I will give 100% of myself to them. And just someone that it's just fun to be around, that enjoys going for a surf, enjoys hanging out with family, enjoys being on the boat, just, yeah, someone that...
It's good energy.
Yeah, good energy.
And the whole all in.
I'm a big believer in you put good energy out into the world and good energy will come back.
Yeah, just all in with good energy.
Yeah. Yeah, hell yeah.
And it bounces back.
Yeah.
All right, bro. Well, thank you for that.
Dude.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
No,
this was epic. This was so good.
No, I've been meaning to do it for a while. I'm like...
I know, and I was like so anxious this morning. I was like, oh my God, we're finally doing this. Like, yes, we've spoken about it for so long. I wanted to, bring as much as I could into this because we have spoken about doing this for months now. So
yeah,
I loved it.
No,
I loved it.
Epic, bro. I always like picking people's minds, especially ones that have dealt with similar things in a different realm, like the upbringing, the competitiveness, the mindset. It's very rare to be able to really open up someone's mind about things. And because when you're going through, you're like, I'm the only one that's felt this. I'm the only one that dealt with this. And you're like, no, man. So many people go through that exact same thing, especially when you're trying to elevate yourself as a high level athlete. You're like, in the moment, especially when you're in an individual sport where it's just you, you're like, no one feels this. No one knows what this is like. You know, especially in every sport, individual sport, everyone probably has felt similar to that in one way or another. So, epic, bro.
Dude, thank you so much. This has been incredible.
Epic.
So
well,
good.
Do you want to just say what's the plan now? You're going back to America, going back to compete over there. You're doing your 6 months. Next month, start of May, you boost off.
Yeah, so my schedule for, I guess, over the next few months is I got another 2.5 weeks here in Australia, and my goal for those 2.5 weeks is just to recover my ankle as much as I possibly can. I've had 2 surgeries in the space of 2 months, getting my ankle back to where it needs to be. So life for me has been pretty boring the past few months, just rehabbing and getting back to being fit and healthy. I am heading over to the States at the beginning of May. I'm going to spend a week in LA. I'm going to go to the Red Bull High Performance Center and work with some of the best doctors and trainers in the world and really just tick off the last few boxes and tests on the ankle that I need to. From there, I'll go to my second home over in Orlando, Florida, and I'll be there probably for about 4 months, a little bit shorter this year, obviously, just because I'm staying home to do my rehab here in Australia. And for that 4-month period, I will just be on the boat every day, in the gym every day, just working my butt off to hopefully put myself in a position where I can be successful again this year. And then I'll be back in like August, September time. And my biggest goal for this year is I've worked very hard with some companies in the US to bring an event to the Gold Coast here in Australia. And we actually have the World Championships here this year. So like for me, like that's my ultimate. That's like, if I don't win any events this year, that's fine. I'm winning that event. Like
We're locking in.
Yeah, I mentally just can't comprehend anything else. So, so I'll come back around that time. I'll compete at the last stop of the World Tour here on the Goldie, and I'll devote myself as much as I possibly can to doing well in that event. And then from there, that'll be the season ender. That'll finish out the year. and then probably take some time off as I do every year. I'll take a couple months off. And then preseason will start back up December, January, and then we just roll through it again. Do the same thing. So,
sick, man.
But I got a lot of changes and a lot of challenges coming up within the next 12 months. So I'm really excited.
Nah, sick. Well, dude, I appreciate you coming on.
Dude,
love
thank
the
you
chat.
so much.
I'll let you go get
epic.
your girl now. See you, bro.
She's probably waiting at the airport.